I think now a lot of schools are catching up that mental health is needed in school systems. I worked for LAUSD. They have a robust school mental health program. At the same time, it's not enough.
When the raids were happening, the first week or two, I feel we were all kind of just in reactive survival mode. But by week 3, I was like in my house, like mopey, weepy, sad, heavy sad.
I think for many of us who may be children of immigrants, right, or grandchildren of immigrants, I think that it's, in a way, it's in our face, right? It's forcing us to just really say, like, where do I fall in all of this? Because I still look brown, and I am proud to be brown.
We have been told not to ask for help because that's a sign of weakness. A strong woman can do it all. A strong woman doesn't break down. You're stronger than that. Come on. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I'm being so weak. I don't need help. I can do it all. To the point of exhaustion. They don't take care of themselves. They're overwhelmed. They have breakdowns. They're eating horribly, and they're lashing out at their family and their kids.
Right, but what we're saying is, like, one thing you can't take away from me is the control that I have in my body.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Empowered with Gina. Today, we are meeting a guest that is here to talk about a timely topic: emotional trauma, mindset, wellness, mental health. And that is Dr. Yanira Hernandez.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me.
We met over social, so this is our first time meeting in person, and we're already so aligned.
I know.
So you're a licensed clinical social worker, which is more important than anything now than ever. But before we jump into that, 3 adjectives to describe yourself.
Passionate, community-oriented, and alignment.
Beautiful. You're also the director of Palante therapy, right? We're going to talk all about that. But first, I want to know, who was Dr. Yanira, the little girl? Where did she grow up? What was her childhood like?
Yeah, I love that question. And so many feelings come up with that question, too. I am a proud daughter of immigrant parents from Puebla, Mexico. And I say that with such orgullo, where my parents come from. And I grew up specifically in LA, in South Central Los Angeles. And, it's only 4 of us. I am the eldest of 2. So I have a younger brother who's about 4 years younger than me. And I grew up in a traditional Mexican Catholic working class household where my parents, they work in the garment industry. So I always saw how much they worked, and also they emphasize in education. They were like, "Mija, you have to go to college." Even though they didn't know what college was, they were like, "You have to go to college."
That was going to be my question. How much was academia enforced in your home?
Yeah, it was very enforced, actually.
Why?
In this sense, I think it has to do because my mom, she always wanted to be a teacher, but unfortunately she had to leave school at 6th grade because she had to support my grandparents and help out in the household. She was also the eldest of 13, and so my mom always knew the value of education, and very early on she was like, "You guys have to read. You guys have to do well in school." And so we were very academic driven, my brother and I, to the point where I feel like a lot of the perfectionism, a lot of that manifested, but we were always told that if we have our education, no one can take that away from us, no matter where we come from. And that always stuck with me.
That's right.
Because I'm like, no matter how my identities, especially those identities that have been historically marginalized, my education, no one can take that away from me.
And so now you're a doctor, and you listened. You followed along, and you did what you're supposed to do, right?
Yeah.
So where did you go to college?
So I went to UCLA. Actually, I went to UCLA as a biochemistry major, so pre-med student.
Okay, so you were a smart student from the beginning.
I always loved my math and science classes. Always very, very studious. I was always in all STEM extracurricular activities.
You're really smart.
Well,
listen, from a strong
you,
C+ physics and algebra student, you're really smart.
And what would happen, I think that, when I entered UCLA, I was very honed in and wanted to be a medical doctor, really wanted to be a pediatrician.
Oh.
And I think partly was because it was also my parents' dream for me.
Okay.
And partly I thought it was my dream as well. And somehow during my tenure at UCLA as an undergrad, a girl who's big hoop earrings
Yes.
from South Central,
Yes.
rocking Jordans,
Yes.
didn't feel like I belonged, at UCLA, even though I was aligning with friends who were also Latinas. But we realized now, looking back, I think we were all just struggling in different ways, but no one was really mentioning,
Yeah.
no one was really saying it out loud. So I wasn't failing, but I wasn't doing excellent in my classes. I feel like I really didn't know how to seek mentorship. I really didn't know who to go to.
Okay.
And partly was also maybe shame because I should be. I was the studious. I was a straight A student. And asking for help was really hard for me. And I think I learned that very early on from my family, not asking for help. And you can be a badass by yourself. And
that part you need to unpack.
yeah. And then, so that impacted me in terms of not asking for help. So then I recall going to my counselor and just say, I don't think this is the path for me. And she said, okay, Yanira, what is it that you're passionate in? I was like, I don't know. And she's like, okay, well, she introduced me. She's like, I think you should take a women's studies class and just see how it goes. People, I'll have a lot of students that really like this women's studies class. And I said, okay. And then at that time, I was also taking education studies. And I really loved education studies because I felt like they were talking about me. They were talking about the intersection of race, class, and inequities in schools. So I'm like, I feel so seen. I went to my women's studies class and it just changed. It changed. It really defined kind of where I'm at now because I ended up majoring in women's studies and a minor in education studies.
Oh.
And that led to my field of social work and mental health and everything else. Yeah.
Unbelievable. So then after UCLA, you find your calling.
I found my calling. I went to USC directly from undergrad. I went to USC.
Really smart because I'm USC alum. Undergrad, though.
Yeah.
Undergrad.
I went to USC for my master's in social work. I think partly it was because I was so afraid of the real world, like after undergrad, that I'm like...
Went right into school.
Yeah, I know how to do school. I don't know how to be
Sure.
a full-time
Sure.
employee. So I think part of it was also that. And also, I also realized that I was very interested in this program. And it's a helping profession. I knew I was always going to land in a helping profession. And I went to USC. I did 2 years. And then after graduation, I worked full time in different settings, specifically for the county. That's where I got licensed and I saw so many different type of cases there. And also through that is when I realized I want to go back to school. But this time I want to focus on educational psychology because I was seeing a lot of different cases where they needed advocacy in schools, especially when it came to mental health.
Okay, so talk to me about this educational psychology.
Yeah.
For the lay people out here like me listening, explain what that means and why it's vital in our system.
Yeah. So this program specifically, which I love, I went back to USC actually for the degrees in educational leadership with a focus in educational psychology. And why I loved about it is because I realized that learning about how individuals learn is important because we all have different ways of learning. And oftentimes in school systems, we're so conditioned to learning in one way,
Right.
And that doesn't work for everyone, and oftentimes we have individualized plans for those students who may be struggling in their work, right? So that is kind of the most obvious way of identifying. However, we all have different learning styles.
Right.
What works for you may not work for me, but it doesn't mean that something is wrong with me.
Right.
And I love the psychology behind that and how we can also focus on the social emotional aspect of our students and being able to address that in the classrooms. And a lot of the times in the classrooms, it's not addressed. It's just kind of like, here you go. This is the material. These are the standardized, kind of what we have for you to teach.
So standardized.
And there we go, without really checking in on the social emotional well-being of students and how that impacts their learning brain. And that's really important.
How much support is there from this? Is it through the school district or private schools, or how much support is there? Because I know certainly when I was going to school, nobody was talking about mental health, different learning methods, different learning behaviors and patterns.
Yeah.
That didn't exist. You either are straight A, middle, or failing, right? So that's my question. Like, how much support is there in recognizing the value you bring and the need for this? Is there support out there?
I think there's more support than years ago, than 20, 30 years ago, for sure. I think now a lot of schools are catching up that mental health is needed in school systems. So now I know I worked for LAUSD for some time, and they have a robust school mental health program. At the same time, it's not enough, right? Because we just have so many students with so many diverse needs, and I think different schools, charter schools, I don't know much about the private schools, but I know different school systems are trying to implement more school social workers, school psychologists, school-based therapists, to address these needs. But what happens is that there's just not enough. And we have so many families that are in need, especially considering even just the climate right now. If you have 2 school social workers, but there is about 500, even 1,000 students,
Jesus.
and everyone has a diverse needs. Like, imagine the burnout that happens for our school mental health providers.
Absolutely.
So there's just not, unfortunately, there's not enough funding that is going into these positions, which then it trickles down to the students and the families being impacted.
So practically, again, for a layperson, what practically is the role you play, like, in a student's life in the system? How is it applied?
Yeah. So the way that kind of school mental health looks like in schools, or just like mental health, is that if we know that there is a student who's having behavioral issues, because that's what they see first, right? There's a student that is acting up, whether it's going to school age, elementary, middle school, or high school. Typically, that's the first thing that is observed. And if there's any behavioral issues, then in a more punitive way, it would be you're suspended
or detention.
Something like that. We're looking at it through trauma-informed lenses, school mental health. We're seeing, like, what's happening in the student's life that is making him, her, they act up. And then we address that. We provide the resources, the different tools for the student and for the family in a more comprehensive way. We're also bringing in teachers. We're also bringing in other people who work with the student to provide those resources. Unfortunately, not everyone has the same lenses, the clinical trauma-informed lenses that you have, in a school system. So that sometimes it's can be very challenging, in that sense, and then because you're also on one hand not only providing that, you may also be the advocate or the only advocate for the student or the family or the parent, or
the student against the family.
Sometimes
the family doesn't understand.
That can also be a thing. And we see that often with students who may navigate any type of, like, depression, especially if it's stigmatized, in the family or in the community, in the culture. Then sometimes there is a lot
nothing's wrong with you. Be stronger. Don't be so weak. Gosh.
Yeah. So sometimes it's like, oh, I didn't experience that, therefore you can't, or you have everything.
Why are you complaining?
Why are you
You're
complaining?
So lucky.
And then then a lot of sometimes students internalize that, like, oh yeah, it shouldn't be. I should be feeling okay. I shouldn't be asking for help. Right. And that happens as well.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so on this vein, I want to pivot a little bit and talk about something you mentioned about not asking for help, because this is talking mental health. So taking it outside of what you do specifically, and being that you have a background in all of this, let's talk about, for especially the women listening. We have been told not to ask for help because that's a sign of weakness. A strong woman can do it all. A strong woman, doesn't break down. You're stronger than that. Come on. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't know why I'm being so weak. I don't need help. I can do it all, to the point of exhaustion. They don't take care of themselves. They're overwhelmed. They have breakdowns. They're eating horribly, and they're lashing out at their family and their kids. You grew up with that, as most of us did. What have you learned, and what are, like, a few tips women listening who are like, oh my God, I feel seen. They're talking about me right now. what would you tell them about that?
Yeah. I think something for me that has worked is really just even naming and acknowledging where I heard those messages, either directly or indirectly. Because sometimes our parents may not necessarily say, don't ask for help, but we see it in the way that they modeled. We can see our parents, or especially our mothers, who work. My mom worked full time and she was a caretaker full time, and I never saw her asking for help. So even though she didn't directly tell me, like, mija, no pidas ayuda, don't ask for help, that was the direct message, the indirect message that I was getting. She modeled it, and I was first seeing it as like, my mom is a strong woman, which I do think she is a strong woman, right? At the same time, sometimes we confuse strength or like being weak with some sort of like with vulnerability and asking for help. Like somehow it is not, it doesn't exist, and that's important. I think that once I began unlayering, where did I start receiving these messages and how much it has impacted me, because even through my academic life and professional life, there were so many times I could have asked for help, Gina, and I realized how swamped I was, and it was impacting my physical and emotional body, and not until like later in my 30s where I'm beginning to learn how to ask for help. Like, I can't do it all, and as a matter of fact, I don't want to do it all.
Right.
I want all of us to do it together, because we all can. And just really just noticing in so many ways where my body is being exhausted, not only physically, emotionally, mentally, and just really asking myself, this is working. It may be working right now. Yes, it's helping me. But is it sustainable?
That's right.
10 years down, how is my body going to show up? Because it does manifest. The body will tell you,
I know it. Mm-hmm. The tension headaches, the acid reflux,
everything. It will let you know. So then for me, I started pivoting. I said, I don't want this quality of life. And I didn't start noticing that until I got into my own private practice, where I realized where I needed help. There's no way I can build a business on my own.
That's right.
And
it's impossible.
And that is where I started learning. I was like, I need to ask for help, and also now giving the help to other women or just other individuals who are seeking this type of kind of field or doing private practice as well, and just really noticing and how much as a community we can thrive when we ask for help and we extend. And it doesn't mean that I'm weak. It doesn't mean that I'm no longer strong. I know I am, but I don't always have to be strong, or I don't always have to prove my strength.
It's smart. You're working smarter, not harder.
Yes.
And you just said to be able to be a resource for others. And you can only do that if you have the bandwidth to do it. And you only get that bandwidth if you delegate and have a team helping you and ask for help.
Absolutely.
It's such a backwards concept we were taught, and it has limited our cultures tremendously. And so I think why it's so important for women to see people like me and you, different backgrounds, different, walks of life, same mindset, same, but we learned it both differently. We weren't necessarily raised that way. The second part of that, which usually happens for most people, is then they start feeling guilty.
Yeah.
Well, I can't. I have to take care of my mom and my family. My parents are aging. I have to be the one to take care of the kids. I have to do it, because then I'm not a good daughter, mom, wife, family, sister, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
What do we do with that?
Yeah. So interesting that you mentioned that, because guilt and shame are like, I feel like son como primos. They're like, they're like cousins.
Totally.
They're like those like cousins that can't be apart, but sometimes you're like, they love
to hang out.
They love to hang out, right? And they go with you all the time. And those, you usually see guilt and shame at the same time. And a lot of the times it's coming from a place of survivalhood. If you look at it, going back to like our parents, our grandparents, or especially our mothers or grandmothers, right? Working hard, not asking for help, a lot of those are survival tactics. Maybe they needed that in order for just to keep going, right? To keep hustling, because that was the circumstance. But now unlearning that and realizing that we're no longer in a state of survival, but the body believes it is. Ooh. So we have to kind of really go in there and untrain the body and just really say, like, you're it's okay. It's okay, and really just kind of dig deep of why it's coming up, and, in different ways of showing up for yourself. That doesn't have to be from a state of survival.
And that unlearning is a foundational shift that rocks your perspective, rocks who you are, everything we've known. And for some people, it's like a moment and like a very quick transformation. Others, it takes years sometimes. And it's great. And there's no right or wrong.
That is okay.
There's no right or wrong.
Yeah.
That's the other thing. We were told there's right and there's wrong.
Yeah.
You're good or you're bad. Yeah. Girl, no. Nothing is wrong with us. Nothing's ever been wrong with us.
Yeah. And I think that's important, that it's okay. And how can you unlearn something in a year that you've learned for decades? And it takes time. And a lot of the times too, because life continues to life, and we're continuing to just really adjust to the different circumstances and things that life throws at us, and so we're continuously working on ourselves. And I always tell that to my clients, and I remind myself too, like, healing has no expiration date. Ever. You're consistently healing. Why? Because right now I'm in a different phase, but maybe 5 years from now I'm in a different phase, and new triggers, new things are going to come up that I'm going to have to work on.
That part.
And so we're consistently working on ourselves. There's no expiration date, but we just keep adding different tools.
That's right.
and learn how to navigate that. And instead of being so overwhelming, it becomes more manageable.
Yeah. So speaking of navigating, I want to focus on what's happening today. As we know, immigration and the government are attacking brown people, communities of color, Spanish-speaking Latino people, us. We're in positions that traditionally have been able to help people, you and I. We now know our limits because of being attacked in an unconventional way. That being the case, how do you talk to people, and I think this is interesting and it's coming up for a lot of people, that are being forced to face generational traumas that they've never had to face before? We're all Latinos. Yes, we all came from somewhere, blah, 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 but we're American and we lived our lives. It is now being thrown in our face, whether we like it or not. You are an other, you were an other, even though we're not, we're from here, we're Americans, majority of us. Or even if we're not, you're not accepted, you're not welcome, you're an other. Right or wrong, I don't want to talk about indigenous. I want to talk about the trauma part of it.
Yeah.
What are you seeing, and what is like a tip or something people can bear in mind as they're facing this unexpected like glare of this generational trauma that they didn't even know they had?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a wonderful question too, because I think for many of us who may be children of immigrants, right, or granddaughters, grandchildren of immigrants, I think that it's, in a way, it's really, it's in our face, right? It's forcing us to just really say, like, where do I fall in all of this? Because I still look brown.
Hello.
And I am proud to be brown.
Beautiful.
Right. And also is like, what does that mean when it comes to how my parents are being targeted, how our families are being targeted, our abuelitas are being targeted, and a lot of times maybe those are questions that we didn't really ask ourselves, right?
We didn't have to.
We didn't have to. And also kind of, especially if maybe your parents or your grandparents had citizenship status, right? Maybe something that you didn't really, it didn't come as something as like in nature to think about, because we're like, my family is safe, in that
we
sense.
were following what we had to do.
Exactly. And then now we're seeing that people even with document status are being racially profiled. Citizens, U.S. born citizens, so I think it really.
But they're still brown.
Yeah. And now it's really hitting us in a different way than it was before, because it's important to note that undocumented individuals have always navigated this, and now it's being exacerbated to the point
and
where we're weaponized and dehumanized. And I think that noting that is important, and it's really forcing us to just really see, it's like, wow, if maybe before I didn't really think about this, I'm noticing that I'm feeling something in my body, And what does that mean? And it's unlayering that intergenerational trauma, what you've mentioned, because maybe I didn't have to immigrate here, but my parents did. Or maybe if my parents didn't, my abuelitos did. Yeah. And they're carrying those wounds, especially if it's never been really explored in the family, because it's things we don't talk about at the family function, So then never had to. So now it's like, now we are exploring that, and we're realizing everything that our families have gone through, our generations of families have gone through, and you're like, oh, it makes sense why I'm feeling it so heavy in my heart, because we carry that, it's literally passed down, and so I think that that's important to acknowledge that. That's why, even though like I can be a citizen, but I'm still feeling it.
Because I was feeling it, and I love that you just said that. When the raids were happening, the first week or two, I feel we were all kind of just in reactive survival mode. But by week 3, I was like in my house and mopey, weepy, sad, heavy sad. And I told my husband, I don't understand why I'm feeling it so heavy. And as time has moved on, this is what I've been led to. I'm like, this is forcing me to look at my lineage. I mean, I'm educated, I'm resourceful, I'm not ideally the first person they're going to go after, but I'm next, just because of my skin, just my people, my family. And I'm being forced to look at, my family's from New Mexico and the border crossed us. What do you do with that? And that's forced me to look at, well, what did those generations go through? And there's been so much that I've never had to even really consider. Oh, my family's 6th generation, and a discussion, move on. What are my hobbies? Now it's like in our face. So what do you advise from a therapy mental health standpoint? People like me, first gen, people with DACA, people are undocumented. How can we just get through a day? And are there tools or mindset conversations we need to have to get us through these things for this marathon? Because nothing's going to change anytime soon.
Absolutely. And I think that's something I really liked, kind of working like brain body type of techniques, skills, and just really allowing the body to just understand and really ground ourselves, be present with our body, because oftentimes we're just kind of go. And like you mentioned, we're taking in from what we're experiencing directly firsthand, what we're seeing on social media, on the news. So then our body is taking it in constantly.
Whether scrolling.
Yeah, and we're constantly taking it in addition to the feelings, the emotions, the burdens that we've been carrying. So just really allowing your body to just notice what is it that you're feeling. Even if I can't describe it through an emotion, I know that I feel heaviness in my chest.
Okay.
I know that I'm feeling like I've been nervous, or I've been carrying so much on my back, y me duele, and it hurts. Like I just notice all these kind of activations that are happening in my body. And now what can I do to attend to that part of my body? I'm not saying like, let's fix it and no longer feel that. What we're saying, like, let's attend. What are you trying to tell me? And it makes sense that you're feeling heavy, because what I'm seeing is heavy.
Makes sense.
And so we're validating. So we're starting with the validation, and we can do that with our own bodies. What am I feeling? What am I noticing? Right? And then working through different skills to just kind of allow you to come back. Like maybe deep breathing is really helpful. Tapping is really helpful.
What's tapping?
Tapping is just kind of, we can do butterfly taps, and like very slowly, and just
what
kind
does
of
this do?
Focusing. This is a bilateral stimulation, something that comes, we use it very often in EMDR. Eye movement desensitization reprocessing is a type of kind of a brain body based therapy modality. And what we're doing right now is we're activating both parts of our brain, but we do it through slow breaths. We can also say affirmations doing this very slowly. So it's very gentle techniques like that we can just allow our body to just kind of
catch
go
up
through and catch up. And we're not saying what's happening is what's happening outside is not there, because we're very much, we know it's present, right? But what we're saying is like, one thing you can't take away from me is the control that I have in my body.
That part.
And that's why I think somatic based skills can be so helpful when navigating the fear of what's happening. And there are many other somatic skills that, that one can do, but I think just really tuning into the body, and that can help. And with the affirmations, like, even though I'm feeling anxious right now, I honor what my body is feeling. Even though I'm afraid to leave my house, I honor that I have control in my body in this moment. So different affirmations that are honoring your current experience can be very helpful. And like, you know what? Yeah, I'm choosing to be present in my body right now. And that is something no one can take away from me in this moment.
Gosh.
Because oftentimes the body feels like it's experiencing the trauma, whether it's vicarious trauma. If I'm seeing it online, it feels like it's happening to me. If I'm listening to something that's happening, the body thinks it's happening to me.
Interesting.
So it's all trauma responses. So we have to kind of remind the body that no, it's not happening to us. However, it's letting the body think, it thinks like, oh, we've been here before. So what can we do to ensure that we are being centered and remind the body that it's not happening to us in this moment?
Jesus.
So it's a lot of work, but I do think that kind of working through the body can be very healing while navigating the fear of the ICE raids and the kidnapping that's happening to our people right now.
And these tools are useful just for anyone at any place in the universe. It doesn't have to be triggered by ICE.
Yeah.
If you are stressed out, if you have life, professional, whatever
Absolutely.
it is happening, what you just told us to do is completely relevant.
Yeah.
For anything in our lives.
And any stress related event, where you feel like you need to ground yourself. Absolutely. No.
And I love that, because this is the strength. This is what will embolden us to get through and process the trauma, the stress, or whatever. This is not, I'm not a weak baby. I don't need to stop and do that, hippie stuff. I used to be that person. I used to talk like that. Again, because I was raised very like, we're strong. I could do it all. I don't need any help. I don't know. Why am I feeling so anxious? God, I'm such a weakling. Oh no, girl. My nervous system was like, hello.
Yeah, it will.
Panic attack.
It will tell you. It will tell you.
Panic attack. The worst.
Yeah.
So, okay. Well, this is such an important conversation, and I would love for people to be able to follow you and what you do, because you are a wealth of knowledge. And I just want to thank you on behalf of community. I know it's your profession. I know it's what you've chosen to do, but you do really stand as a pillar for us generally in society, but especially now, because you represent the possibility, the hope, the dream that is absolutely still possible, capable, and will happen for everyone. But more so, you are absolutely the person to tell us the tools of how to get through this. And people, I think, are receptive to it now.
Yeah.
Thankful to social media for all the bad that it is. People like you, messages like this get out and can help people where they've never, ever heard this kind of stuff before. So I thank you, and I just commend you for what you do in our schools, in our community, because you are literally ground zero shaping our society, truly.
Thank you so much, Gina. And I'm really taking in what you're sharing, because I get a little bit squirmy when I receive compliments. I'm learning to take compliments. So thank you so much for your words. And, and like I said, like, I'm really passionate about the work that I do, not only because it's part of my lived experience, but also it's my community, you know, and if I'm a resource, I'm going to put it out there, and I think one of the things that I really want to focus on is like, there is resources for our gente, for our community out there. And I think, and I am, like you mentioned, like, there's so many negativity with social media, but there's also a lot of positivity, because we're able to provide those resources to our people, to our community who maybe wouldn't have direct access otherwise. Whether it's the access is coming through their child who does have social media and the parent doesn't. Hopefully it's like, hey, I found this, mom, like, or dad, do you want to like attend? And now, or do you, this is happening, it's a workshop or it's a community event that they have knowledge, there's information out there.
Right.
So there is a lot of, those kind of pros and cons of social media, but I am grateful for having the platform to be able to just kind of disseminate information. I don't like to say that I'm a voice for our gente, because our gente has always had voice.
That's
it just
right.
needs to be uplifted, and being able to put that in a platform of like, we've always had these voices, and we want the masses to hear our truth, and I hope I'm putting my granito de sal, my just a little bit in
You
there,
are.
and where people can see that these are our stories.
You are doing it. We're doing it. This is the example. This is who we are. So I appreciate it. I'd love to have you back, and we can talk so many more topics. I would love that. And so we'll put your information in the caption for people to follow. Please follow. These are the people you should be following. These are the feeds you need to be, you don't need to, but you should consider following. Because let's fill our brain and our tank and our body with this. Okay. So anyways, thank you so much for being here. And I can't wait to welcome you back. And I will see everybody next time.